What's up, everybody?
I'm gonna tell you the truth though. Really? I like to read a lot. Books be uplifting me. Words help you see a lot. This book was a gift to me. Chuck D presents this day in rap and hip hop history. It's a reference book. It puts important dates on a list for me. Jamel Shabazz, A Time Before Crack. A photographic history of hip-hop from way back. His Martha Cooper's hip-hop files, Charlie Ahern, Wild Style, and 50 Cent's 50th Law. I used to read this to my child. Sometimes I look at my library and I smile, because if I can't find it on the shelf, I know it's there in my file. Meanwhile, there's other books with other hooks and outlooks. I like to cook, so I read about cooks. I can't live without books. I like books, I recite books, I even write books a lot. Science of rap, ruminations, gospel of hip-hop. But let me spit a quick list, a book list that's really short. The first book that you should get is really a passport. Travel, that's key, but the books can unlock it.
Right.
Unlock your mind by reading lines of new topics.
Right.
Place your optics on books of real black knowledge. Beginning with Carter G. Woodson, I'm paying homage. His book, Miseducation of the Negro, is essential for freeing your mind from the slavery that's mental. Turn up this instrumental. You ain't dealing with an amateur. I'm reading Walter Rodney, How Europe Undeveloped Africa. That's the man to thank, high rank. Let's look at the birth of Black America by Andrew Frank. Take that to the bank. Let me rock again. Check out Africa, Mother of Western Civilization by Joseph Ben Yakinen. Check out Black Man of the Nile again by Joseph Yakinen. Civilization or Barbarism by Schenck and Tajop. And then Begins by William Loring Katz. Take it back. Anything by Dr. Cornel West, you need to go get that.
Message to the black man.
Go get all of that. Henry Louis Gates, PBS, show support for that. I'm like Bannock, go with the almanac. Books, I got the tallest stack. The Brooklyn Public Library, yeah, that's where I started at. I read up everything, every book that I could see. While these others...
All right, y'all. This is Super Mike 2164. I want to go quick today. We want to introduce everybody to a situation I just became aware of, so I want to go into it. There's been a lot of talk over the years, past few years, about a guy, Patrick Moynihan. Patrick Moynihan. And, Moynihan report and his memo and, the 1970s, it's the 1964, and how he wanted to, mainstream the Negro to try to clean up this urban warfare. Black folks in the 60s was really turning it up. And that's Daniel Patrick Moynihan right there. And so basically the Moynihan report, just to give a quick context let's look at that quick. So, this is the Atlantic newspaper, okay? So Patrick Moynihan wrote this memorandum, I believe he was a senator, but later, to Willard Wirtz. Because of the urban uprisings, they made this investigation to see what the cause of this thing was. So on April 20th, 1964, memorandum, Daniel Patrick Moynihan made the case for more aggressive action on behalf of the Negro. So that's Moynihan there. See? So really his report was actually intended to bring these tangibles to the Negro, as black people were called at that time. So this was presented in 2015. So the memorandum was composed by Moynihan when serving as Secretary of Labor, and sent to Secretary of Labor Willard Wirtz. It was the first time he made clear the scale of the proactive efforts he envisioned if the government were to achieve not just the equality of opportunity for African Americans, but also an equality of outcome. So you don't want to just achieve equality of opportunity, but equality of outcome. Has the time come to organize an inquiry into the subject of unequal treatment of the Negro? Those responsible for public policy in America are being asked where they stand on this point. It seems to me, however, that the response in general is one of bewilderment and confusion at a wholly unfamiliar proposition. The subject is much in need of analytical and philosophical discussion, which Black people always have had. And I mean, even back to Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, you know, stuff that we, just off the top of the head, we can. So we've always had these discussions in our community. But the white people wants to have mainstreaming the Negro. So American doctrine is okay. So this is basically, basically in a nutshell, I'm going to say it like this: if you want to actually clean up racism, this was his proposal. You want to get rid of this thing called racism? Do this. Is what Moynihan set up. All right. So that's that. You got the text of the Moynihan memorandum. We're not going to go through it, but it's just showing you this was in March. Text of the Moynihan memorandum on the status of Negroes. So this was in March 1st, 1970. All right. Hold on. Sunday, March 1st, 1970. So as the new year begins, it occurs to me that you might find useful a general assessment of the position of Negroes at the end of the first year of your administration and of the decade in which their position has been the central domestic political issue. So basically saying this is 1970 March, okay, and from 1960, from 60 to 70. All right. So, these are the covers. I can't go on here too much. Let me see too much. All right, following the text of as the year begins, okay. Employment, income. All right. Social pathology. Okay. Female-headed families. This is considered a problem. Today they want to wear it as a badge of honor, but this is considered a problem. Female-headed families. Education. Okay. The Nixon administration, as you have candidly acknowledged. Now, he gave this to Nixon, which we know that Nixon and Reagan was on the phone laughing at Black people, calling them monkeys, and they hate Black people. So people really, average people thought this was cool, but this is like Nixon was hostile to this. Social alienation. You guys can go through. I'm not going through all this right now because really I want to focus on this other guy. I just want you all to see this is the policies that Moynihan wanted. Well, he put out. So they say he urged benign neglect of racial issues. All right, race as an issue, the more people get polarized, the more crazy racists on the left and maybe crazy racists on the right shout and yell. So basically, he's saying that you should just ignore the benign neglect policy. Okay, so this here was they took this they used this one, the benign neglect policy. All right, we're not going into Moynihan today. I just wanted to show you guys that. But now, this here is Edward Banfield. And we're going to go a little bit more into him today. This is this guy, this white man. He took pretty much an opposing view on this. And, so he wrote a book. It's called The Unheavenly City. So let's see if I can show you guys that real quick. And I'm just going to pull a few points out of this Atlantic article of 1970. This is the 1970 September. Remember, Moynihan came out with his thing earlier in March of 1970. And this article actually came out in September 1970 after Edward Banfield released his little book, talking about black people. So this unheavenly city, let's look at this image. That's his book cover. So we're going to get into some of it real quick. All right, so let's look at this quote. So this is the theory of lower class that Edward Banfield, expounded on. The lower class individual lives in the slum and sees little or no reason to complain. He does not care how dirty and dilapidated his housing is, either inside or out, nor does he mind the inadequacy of such public facilities as schools, parks, and libraries. Indeed, where such things exist, he destroys them by acts of vandalism if he can. Features that make the slum repellent to others actually please him. He finds it satisfying in several ways. So that is one of his quotes in The Unheavenly City by Edward C. Banfield. This review is by Richard Todd. This is a September 1970 issue here. Okay. Keep in mind that, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but strange sentiments written as they were in 1970, social scientists by Banfield. They might easily be heard as Swiftian irony, which is basically, low comedy, like, sarcastic comedy. But in fact, they are deliberate in earnest. These people are serious. And these lines suggest, Edward Banfield, The Unheavenly City contradicts almost every received idea about urban problems, including the widespread assumption that they have reached a new point of crisis. Okay, the point of crisis was what Moynihan was doing. He was telling you the reason why you're getting all these urban uprisings, these, basically, in modern day, we got F the police, but he's telling you you're getting the urban crisis. Moynihan was saying you're getting the urban crisis is because you got to treat this as a crisis. And Banfield was like, no, we don't. No, we don't. This is not a crisis. The urban crisis, by Banfield argues, is largely a matter of perception. So, in the first place, social problems are not predominantly urban, except in nearly useless statistical sense. City is, they saying that the census defines a city as greater than 2,500. The bulk of poverty and substandard housing exists outside the big or even the medium-sized cities. Banfield argues. His second objection to the notion of urban crisis is considerably more complex. Not basically, and I'm not reading every word. I'm just going through this real skimming. Okay, so not more vulnerable. It has to do with what's being called in another context, the revolution of rising expectations. Basically saying that if you expect more, then you're going to look at everything that you do as a failure, because you're never going to get what you expect, because you're expecting something that's out of reach. So He said, although things have been getting better, absolutely, they have been getting worse relative to what we think they should be. So basically, you think it should be better than what's actually getting better, but to you, it seems like a failure. So there's an obviously question: are higher standards not a good thing? Banfield replies quite earnestly on balance, no, they're probably not a good thing. No higher standards. We don't need higher standards. That's what Banfield said. Keep in mind, this is a Harvard College professor. He taught Harvard is the production facility of your government controllers. Those are your elites in ruling class. That's where they go to school, and this guy is the one teaching them. So, all right. So now a Banfield, who was 53 in 1970, uh, is a professor of government. Keep in mind, he's the professor of government. So this guy's teaching people who are going to implement these policies, and he's pumping them out. He's just, and he's got his book, and I'm sure he made them study this stuff. He's talking this stuff in his class. They know him. They question him. Okay, this is what actually happened. So Banfield is 53. The Unheavenly City is his 10th book, by far most ambitious, outspoken. Its themes have been present in his writing from the start, so he's been on this vibe. Okay, your cities are trash. We have to leave them behind. Okay, basically, and that we hear these type of talking points today in some of the manosphere circles. Everyone wants to be the elite. They want to leave. They want to have the power to leave people behind. It really doesn't work for actually Black people or America total, or any society that wants to keep itself together. You can't create policy that literally intends to leave proportion of your population behind. All right, so as iconoclastic as it is, the Unheavenly City has arrived propitiously, which means just in time for success, propitiously for its purposes at the dead low tide of liberal confidence. So basically, the 70s was saying, basically they thought that the 60s was a failure. We need to do something else. So here you go, the Unheavenly City. We got a new policy going on. At the end of the decade, they put too much energy into trying to save the cities and civil rights, and they were done with that. They're not going to do this civil rights thing. They're not being nice to Negroes no more. We're going to do this benign neglect thing, okay, but not So this is where they mentioned Patrick Moynihan. So we are left singularly ill-equipped to hear a contrary idea, as was plain in March. Okay, that's when Patrick Moynihan's famous memo. So that's when Patrick Moynihan released this thing. All right, the status of Negroes. So let's go through this. What is it? Okay, so the Unheavenly City arrived propitiously for its purposes at the dead low tide of liberal confidence, solve the problem of the cities we perceive failure. Okay, let's go through it some more. Quick. But let's see. So that's Daniel Moynihan. Moynihan's two prolonged words seem to contradict the best impulses of the decade. Neglect could not possibly be benign. Neglect was the sin we had to expiate. The New York Times said of the memo that it can only encourage the most retrogressive elements in the White House, the cabinet, and Congress. Moynihan's explanation of what he meant resembled as it happened, Edward Banfield's analysis. As things get better, Moynihan said, the perception for the last couple of years has been that things are getting worse. If we go into the 70s with the idea that there were no advances in the 60s, then we will lose what we would have gained. Moynihan's second controversial memorandum, which urged that the solution of the problems of the ghetto, see, keep in mind, these are white people determining the fate of the Negro. Moynihan's proposal said the solution of to the problems of the ghetto was the generations long task of dissolving the Negro lower class. The Negro lower class. We have to dissolve them. How's that going to be done? Dissolving, in quotes, the Negro lower class. Who is that? By which he meant transforming it into a working class. Is that working in jail? But anyway, that happens to also be Banfieldian philosophy. Keep in mind, Moynihan, this thing here, this is the, New York Times, I'm sorry. Yeah. So Moynihan urges benign neglect. See, that was the headline because controversial. His thing was focus on it. But now he's telling you to ignore it. Benign and neglect. Well, that's a sin. Okay? And now, at the same time, here's Banfield's book. Even Moynihan agrees with me, right? So, this is determining the fate of the Negro. All right, so all of this is not to cast Banfield as this shadowy figure, which he is. All right, so he is a shadowy figure. He's just a teacher sitting up there at Harvard teaching all your future. He taught Bush, I'm sure, and all these guys, the people of government. So basically, this 180-degree shift in sensibilities to save us. The questions Moynihan memo raises on race, which is central to basically the unheavenly city. All right. Banfield argues that American class structure, more than any other single thing, limits what the society can do to improve life in the cities. So he's limiting their, basically, we can't do. He's got a cannot do mentality. See, it's because of class, So anytime you hear this class talking point, this is white people telling you, black man, that your brain doesn't work. You think you see something that you don't see. It's not about race, it's about class. Okay, tell that to Tiger Woods, who was denied access. And he says to certain clubs, play outside by yourself, Negro boy. We can tell that to Kanye West, who's a billionaire. But I guess they call him not a class person. You can tell that to, whoever. We got a lot of black millionaires, but some of them billionaires. They're not, in the upper crust class. So it's not about race, Negro. It's about class. So class structure, of course, has been difficult concept. Class structure, of course, you stupid, has been a difficult concept for America to deal with. Insofar as we defined our classes at all, we also tended to strictly go according to visible symbols of prestige, which the main one is wealth, the primary study of America, class structure, lawyer, whatever. The assumption is that one's class standing is a matter of who looks up to who, the indices of prestige, family degree, a big house, a degree, family name. This objective view of class structure may be the most useful one as possible. It is, in any case, the one that is most easily reconcilable reconcilable with the American dream. Okay, so that's a dream they give you. If mere objective differences separated the class in time, those differences can be erased. Okay. If this is so, Banfield says, we have failed and we cannot hope to succeed. The drift in our society now is not towards a grouping around the middle class, but towards polarization, more poor, more super rich. Which he was right about that, right? Should be said at once that Banfield has unconventional thinkings about class. All right. So Banfield's substitutes a subjective definition of one defined not by the cars you own, okay, in his work, okay. In Banfield's class hierarchy is the concept that anthropologists refer to as time horizon. So time horizon, basically, how far do you look into the future? Are you looking into the future far enough, Negro? That's how this man determines, this professor of government in Harvard. He's teaching his students that class is determined by how far you plan into your future. Okay? A time horizon, roughly speaking, is the amount of future an individual or culture can comprehend and accommodate. Okay? A time horizon, roughly speaking, is the amount of future an individual or a culture. So you guys are not looked at just as individuals. You're looked at as your group. I don't care how rich you are. You are part of that group. Okay? And I know some of you guys marry Asians. Some of you guys marry white women. But you're still part of that group because we can see you. You act like them too. Plus, we know your lineage. So we know what you're trying to do, but you're not thinking of your future. You're thinking of trying to get away from your future. So we know that you can't see that far into the future and you don't accommodate it. So you're a low class, rich Negro. And we just laugh at you and keep you around like a pet. And see, that's to sell out black folks. You think that just because you go marry these white people or marry some Asian or marry some non-black person, that you're somehow getting yourself close up there into a higher echelon of society. But what they're saying in their mind, what they've been taught is you can't see into the future because what you're telling them you're trying to disappear yourself. Because by you trying to get snuggled up all into them, you're just deleting your power. You're deleting your options. You're deleting your influence. So a time horizon, roughly speaking, is the amount of time an individual or culture can comprehend and accommodate. The primitive tribes cannot see beyond the autumn, because beyond the autumn has been a very useful way of defining their worldview. Banfield argues the same criteria are applied to a civilized society. Time horizons have been mentioned in previous discussion of class as a secondary characteristic. The poor tend to have short time horizons because they face overwhelming immediate needs. See, you're only marrying outside your race and trying to snuggle up to white people, trying to pretend you're something else that you're not, because you face an immediate need of acceptance. So you're not thinking about nothing else. You're just trying to get snuggled up and trying to escape, the ghetto hood and the image of the culture that we've destroyed, made you feel bad that you're a part of. So you face these overwhelming immediate needs, but Banfield makes this characteristic primary. Banfield's lower class is lower class because it is, in his phrase, radically present oriented. He said, "You guys are radically present oriented. You don't think about future. You're too stupid to see beyond your your nose." That's what this man is telling you. All right. Of course, the upper classes also tend to have money. Okay, but let's see. Let's read. I'm sorry. See, it's radically present oriented. A continuum of increasing time horizons describes the other classes: working, middle, and upper. Banfield's upper class is the most future oriented, expects a long life, is concerned also for the future of the community, nation, or mankind. See, y'all don't think on that level. A lot of you guys, we try to get ourselves and some of you guys to think on a higher vibrational level, more into the future. You know, what about you? What about your life in 10 years, 30 years? Okay, after you die, well, let's make a plan for 100 years from now. Negro, you know, y'all don't think like that. That's the reason why you live where you live in a and you don't protect, you don't inherit. Okay, so of course the upper class, they have more money. uh there's at least rough correspondence between conventional class. All right, so I'm not going to read all that, and I linked this article in there for you guys. So the lower class and behavior in Banfield's mind is pathological, meaning it's sickness. See, lower class behavior is pathological. The behavior of other classes normal, but he allows that some portion of what appears to be lower class pathology may be in reality intelligent response to perverse conditions. See, they create these conditions for you, so they know what they're doing. Uh, all right, let's skim through. I want to go through this one. Sufficient opportunity, confusion, Okay, so here's the Negro. Despite all that was said to the contrary, some readers may suspect that when the author uses the word lower class, that he has in the back of his mind is the Negro. So they say that, oh, he's not racist. All right, so we're going to go past that. Basically, he makes this comparison. If you had came into to Massachusetts or into New York City when the Irish came or the Protestants came, then you would have been a Negro in the lower class with them white lower class folks as well. And then those lower class people would be a mixed race today. All right, so we go through some more. I want to go through some more. So we got the Kerner Commission. Negro has experienced brutal facts dissemination. Banfield argues distinctions are not more accurate, but okay. So basically, he's saying that most of these Negroes, most of these Negroes, they're gonna believe that it's not about class. If I was a Negro, I would believe it's about race as well, but it's actually not. So he's saying that y'all stupid. See, Banfield said most blacks are lower class. If Negroes are disproportionately represented in his lower class today, okay, yeah, I'm trying to get through that. The black situation. Banfield insists it's complicated but not dominated by prejudice. Prejudice was not the main disadvantage of the Irish Jews and Italians and others. Now, keep in mind, these are all white groups. Nor is it the main one of the Negro. Okay, right. Because we actually look different than those people. And we're easily, identified. Plus, our issues with a lot of other groups of people on this planet are they're ancient. So this Banfield dude, he's not even scratching the surface. So, comparing us with the white Jews, the white Italians, and these other uh, types of peoples is stupid because, he's not even taking into account, you know, how deep this thing is with black people, with kinky hair black people. All right. He says the Negro's main disadvantage is that he is the latest comer to the central city. Lie. All right, so I'm not doing that. We're going through Colonel Commission. All this can be expected to seem highly artificial to the Negro, who has experienced the brutal facts of discrimination. But Banfield argues that the distinctions are not only more accurate, but socially more useful than responses such as Kerner Commission's, which blame white racism for the plight of the blacks. See, Banfield, he wants to take this thing out of race, which is useful for his philosophy. But this is a race thing because we see that Italians, Jews, Irish, all of these folks, they look a certain way and they get their benefits. Even we're dealing with these, Asians and other groups. They get applied on top of the Negro. So there's something there. Even the black people from other places get a little bit higher level, but they still don't get treated right. So this man goes rioting. So he said rioting mainly for fun and profit illustrates much of what is strong and what is weak about the unheavenly city. Banfield suggests that if we look at the riots in terms of motivation of the riots, we see several separate things going on, ranging from rampaging forages of youth to spontaneous outrage and calculated demonstrations. It is a mistake to call the formal type racial. Yeah. So this dude basically, he made another quote. He said they just need to cordon off the cities and just feed you guys toys. And feed us toys because, that's what they did to, us in the cities. Cordon off the cities, don't allow them to leave, and feed us toys, which is drugs. And that's pretty much what actually happened. So prescription, say it's useless to read I'm not going to go through too much because I'm about to go. But the bottom line is, this is what's out here. I just wanted to put that on your head. This guy, public policy in Washington, they're still discussing this type of policy.
Wings. I fell in the course of the campaign with some people back at Harvard in the Ripon Society, which was known as a liberal Republican brainy people at Ivy League university.
Hold on, y'all can't see all this. Hold on. Yeah, but the bottom line is I'm not going into the whole thing. We did enough there, I think. I think that's what it is. What's going on, guys? What's going on, Joe? James? What's up, James? So that is Edward Banfield. What's going on, guys? And I'm going to end this off and appreciate everybody for popping up. Go ahead and share this message. Press the like button. Let me know what you think about it. If you have any other information about Edward Banfield, if you've read this book, well, not Moynihan, but if you've read this book, I ordered it. So I might check this out. The Unheavenly City. Okay, a lot of us grew up like this. So when you see the issues especially with the American black person, these are the policies that produced what we see today. This guy, his teaching at Harvard, and this is what's going on there. So this is part of what's going on. So I think we're pretty much done. All right, y'all. Peace out.